border, wall, uniform, tall lamp says it all, just to feel the heft. We build the wall, U.S. proud, America strong. I want it, I don't want it. This music's so great, I want to get home early enough to masturbate. The guitar playing, falling, my cunt, bright and black trees, and 3 at least golfers at my back. The ball of the sun is blinding. Who was I last night? Mad, exhausted, critical of everyone, their individual moods. If I turn to the other side, it's blue, green, brown trees wavering. It's a fact. Flowers and flowers and flowers and flowers, flowers, flowers. Vegetation to the bridge, a church, a distant little white church. It looks like it's there to catch someone, a net goal. Is it working or broken? I think it's a checkpoint. Tires and an empty road, waiting for you further up, blaring truck, beautiful, gone sign. His purpose, a horse. Dog runs, fishing road, a whip. He's in the water now. He's not behind the plow. It's a curve with a stone and a shadow, blasting wide open the river and the land. I've done this forever up there, or little pinched. You can walk over. Riata means rope, lariat, barbed wire, riata, framed by it. Enmeshed, ignoring its doodles, passage, passengers, car, wide stride, home to cook. Límite de los Estados Unidos Mexicanos, beautiful reflection of a trap. Splayed birds of power. Aesthetically, the helicopter is a hungry dragonfly, a darning needle. They will sew up your lips. Balls of light or the horizon, and up close, big, blurry, white balls, coterie of cars at night, bus, wide, glowing, nada, perched force aimed to capture, protecting what from the sun, ferrying who? Progress. I sit on my toilet, and I want that. Jumbled kind of tropical store, palm trees, surveillance lamps, sending you home. Walls, posters, torn, stripped. Was it a complaint? We love here and here. Mass-produced, picket fence abuts the border. Mesmerizing animal yard, wet furrows of light. Rising dark birds, denser, blurred passion, speckled sky. Odd lot of trucks and vans, men being hustled into van, steam from engine, cock-blocking arrangements. Looser now, after something. Clean, plein air, metal, border, gap. Piano so bright. The guy makes faces. Guitar player wears a paisley shirt and has no affect at all. An island where they drop bombs. U.S., that is, my killer nation kills thus. It seems we're in the bowels of the watching during the pandemic, wearing masks, a bird looking at 2 orange cones, twice a bird. Everything funnels in time. Nobody knows it. We know it. Do we want it to be processing, to be in school, to be all the children, to be one, them crossing the border in class? The men and their dogs do. We watch them. Do we want, that's a hard stanza. The men and their dogs do, we watch them do. We want this. Do we want to be a dog, being educated? A guy in all white with a black mask? So many of us. My big white belly, I'm relaxed. She tips her head. Cop turns, different shuffle. She scratches her ear. She whispers a truth. Her face is at peace, unmasked. Do we want it? Sad moon shifting through the day. That's what's up. Stand up, bass player, chews gum. I wish I had gum. I want to chew. It's like the mic pitches into the bowl of the sax. Be straightforward, not fucked up. Crimped. Be brave. The piano player reminds me of the time I threw myself off a chair in a panel to make a questioner shut up. And enraged, he would give her answer, schmuck. Language escapes me. Letters collapse. We're done. Solos seem vain, though that is how I've spent my whole life. How is a piano even developed? A piece of furniture with keys. There's a book, and I don't want to read it, yet the guitar is angelic, all vowels. Heroin, you will overdose. I was just thinking about that. Leather shoes, I could wear that. Corporate, chummy, that's a tone. Like I need to know. The greens are unrelated. I just pulled up the leg of my jeans and looked at my socks, remembering that feeling of being thirsty. I'm not in trouble yet. She's bowed to the water, drinking, jutting forward, a stick. She keeps drinking among the dead leaves. Take it easy. Beard of tea in the toilet bowl, almost south, driving east. The genocide's only happening on my phone. It's amazing to be back to this tiny world. This is an amazing pen. The little girl had blood on her mouth. Wipe it away, said her mother. Use your hand. And then the ambulance never came. His pink shirt is great as my pen. I saw shots of a rumpled John Chamberlain ambulance, ripped and crumpled. It was beautiful. How could the little girl be bleeding in there so hard? Two men discuss whether it's really bad. Is it evil? It's a beautiful shirt. I'm torn, pay attention, to the wrong thing. I remember ginger. People cracked up. Cars were naked on the stairs. And this is the American war of excess, us killing ourselves. Nice striped coat. The little girl is dust. It's hard to look. It's not hard to be dust. I see this old stretched skin on my calves and on my arms. I enjoy his sneakers. I want them too. The weightlifter went into prison and came back a skinny old man, limping. People here are not dying. They're happy today. They're grateful. Part of my money every day is killing these people, killing her. The girl who was ashamed of the blood, she was telling her mother, use your hand, her mother said. Nice light pass on the woman's face. Shapes, windows, feet, shoes. Part of my money makes blood. Thank you. Thank you. Maybe a little tiny guy. Do you want to? It's just called, this is what I almost died for. It's called madness. What part of boycott don't you get? Our laws make everyone dishonest. She could pull a switch and make a whole room go dark. She didn't have a femme ego. I don't know if poetry comes from poetry. A banana is a puppet. It comes from music. Music of traffic, of birds, of poetry itself just lying there. A good idea. My mother used to give us vitamins. I take vitamins too. I take billboards in the trees. Tango. I want it to mean I take, but it has this other meaning. I don't want to die for poetry. Gooseland is not the name of the woman who procured from men young girls. That was her appetite. Fetch. Language makes me cry. I'm crying in Spanish all the time. Ahora, relationships are hell, us bobbing our heads. I feel that loss. Die here, near this water. Type me tonight. Part of the agony is not knowing where I'll be in space or time. What else is there? Trees, malls, gas, impacted, extracted time? Shake your hand. You walk by and I fall to pieces. Does our Rhode Island not greet people? You don't deserve me. Young guy leaning against the car, hosing the grass. I am an old car. Then it seemed pointless, meaning now, and seriously, we got pretty far. The most difficult poem for Zionists to pronounce. A Holocaust is a Holocaust is a Holocaust. Pulling all the little switches, the closer I get. I hear you're supposed to wash your hair once a week. Everybody, I thought? The cars go zip, zip, zip. Thank you. Later.
I feel like I can't step on Eileen's poetry. I can meet you there. It's, it would be. I would be asking for trouble in some cosmic sense.
You're great. Thank you so much.
Wow. More applause for Eileen Myles, please. That was amazing. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful to witness. And Anita, thank you for your for your introduction. And now I'd like to invite to the stage one of our summer program assistants, Hannah Rivers, who is going to introduce Vicky Tomayko and Sara Stern. Come on up.
Feels truly wrong to be on the stage after Eileen, but you know. We are really excited to hear from artists Sara Stern and Vicky Tomayko this evening, both of whom are former FALC fellows. And we're also really excited because they're teaching a collaborative class, which is kind of a new venture for FALC. So Sara Stern is an interdisciplinary artist based in New York City. Her recent projects prod varied histories of landscape and urban development with speculative fiction. She works between and across multimedia performance, moving image installation, sculpture, architectural intervention, printmaking, and animation. Stern has exhibited and screened her work in the US and internationally at venues including SculptureCenter, Anthology Film Archives, the Jewish Museum, the Institute of Contemporary Art Singapore, and the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown, where Stern was a 2018 to 2019 Visual Arts Fellow and the 2022 PACE Fellow. Vicky Tomayko is an artist and printmaker who lives in Truro, Massachusetts. A former fellow of the Fine Arts Work Center and the current manager of the FALC Print Shop, she leads workshops for fellows, facilitates projects, and works to maintain and improve the printmaking experience at FALC. Tomayko also teaches silkscreen and painting at Cape Cod Community College. Her work can be seen locally at Schoolhouse Gallery in Provincetown. Vicky has been working at FALC for many years and takes great care of our fellows in the winter, and we're just so lucky to count her as a core member of our community at FALC. So please join me in welcoming to the stage Sara Stern and Vicky Tomayko.
Hi. I want to thank FALC for giving me a second home. And I'm really thrilled to be here this evening making a presentation alongside Eileen and Sara. So the name of the collaborative class that Sara and I are teaching this week is called The Gestural Print. But it started out with a different title. I think at first we called it Performance and Printing or something along those lines. But we weren't getting very many registrations. So we thought, let's emphasize the printmaking portion of the class. And then we started to get some really good students. And I want to thank all my students for being so exploratory and taking on everything in a very open manner. So the printed gesture is all about how performance and printmaking might intersect. So in the print shop, everything you do involves some kind of movement. So we were thinking, well, we could incorporate that into some kind of performative aspect. And our students have a gazillion ideas for what they might do. So make sure you come to Open Studios tomorrow afternoon from 4:30 to 5:30 to see what we've come up with, or they have come up with. And Sara and I are doing our best to facilitate all these grand ideas. So you'll see I wrote underneath the gestural print, not knowing, because that's kind of how I feel about printmaking. So collaboration is like this thing where you have to kind of let go. You have to let go of part of yourself in order to really, truly collaborate. And I feel like printmaking does that. I already know a lot about that because printmaking is like that. Printmaking doesn't always do what you want it to do. Sometimes it tells you what's going to happen. So that's kind of, I have to figure this button thing out. Oh, do I point it there? Oh, that way. Arrow. Not working. Okay. There we go. Okay, so this print is called Late in the Day, and it's a print that it's the first print I made with a new technique. So in the print shop, I like to, wait, I'm just going to set a quick timer here because I don't want to go too long. Okay. I like to do new things in the print shop all the time, try new techniques and new processes because it teaches me something. And also, I like the unpredictability of something new. So this is a print process called waterless lithography, and it was the first time I tried it. And if you look at the top and the bottom of the print, you can see there's all this sort of black smeary stuff. And that is where the print started to just do its own thing. It just started filling in. It started going dark until it went completely black. But the color, this is one that was kind of an intermediate, and the color was added after on top of the black, but in a very transparent way so that it looks like it's underneath. But that's kind of what I'm talking about, is that printmaking doesn't always do what you think it's going to do. Whoops. Okay, so this is another waterless litho, which also failed, but it's in intermediate stage, so I got enough information out of this to do something interesting with it. And in terms of the gesture, you could think about the movements that you make when you're drawing or you're painting. Like, for instance, in this print, the swipes across the image are gestures made in a very sort of physical way, and they can be both additive or subtractive. And this particular print is kind of a fancy print. It's a viscosity separation roll-up. So the brown ink was like this really slippery, juicy ink, and then on top of it, I rolled a really stiff, sticky ink. And this sticky ink would only stick where there was no brown, juicy ink. But I just wanted to see what would happen. And it's kind of another experiment. And this one is just about all the plastic we're putting in the ocean. But again, it's made very gesturally. So all the prints that I'm showing you tonight, I work in a lot of different ways, but all the prints I'm showing you tonight are very much about that whole idea of movement or gesture in the making of the image. So very gestural, and using prints in a kind of collaborative way, in that I use prints over prints. So the ghost is printed on top of the print, it's moved around, the colors are changed, there's transparencies added. And the ink can be modified so it can be either really opaque and sit on top, or it can be really transparent and look like it's underneath. You can do a lot of drawing if you do a trace monotype. So this is by putting color on the plate first and then printing that and then rolling up a bunch of black and then putting a piece of paper on top and drawing through the black, removing black as you're drawing, and then printing what's left over. So you get sort of like the negative of your drawing is on there. Again, very, very gestural, splashing solvents, using rags, using brayers as drawing tools, using brushes, thinning down inks so they're super transparent. It's a lot of playing. So these prints are probably, the ones I'm showing you tonight are mostly 22 by 30 inches, some a little larger. So nature is really important to me, and I think most of the work that I do is about how fragile it is, but also I try to celebrate nature. So again, the gesture here is really a big part of the print. You can see the marks that the brayer makes on the surface of the plate, and then that gets printed onto the paper. And then lots of layers, like I like to work in layers. Like a painting, really. And these are all monotypes, so they're one of a kind. Lots of repetition, iterations. It's just really fun to kind of use your whole arm when you're making a print instead of, sometimes when I'm etching, I'm doing like little tiny drawings and really careful things, but with monotype, I like to just kind of like be expansive. I use a lot of stencils in my work. And if Mary is here, Mary, are you here? Yes. Those black flowers that are towards the bottom, those are the foam trays. Like the plates that you have, the foam, cut and inked up in relief and printed solid. So I love to use, I use a lot of different stuff in printing and materials. Paper stencils, all kinds of stencil materials. But I have to say that even though I've been making monotypes for a very long time, I'm always continually surprised. And that's one of the things we've been talking about in our class is how after you make a plate and you put some paper on it and you run it through the press, and when you pull the paper up, that big reveal we're calling it, it's always a surprise. So very gestural. This is actually a woodcut, and the gestural part of it, the color added to the woodcut. I decided to, I was studying a Japanese artist named Munakata, who was almost, well, he was certainly legally blind, but he would carve blocks with his face about 1.5 inches away from the block, and then he would hand color the back of the prints. So this is on a very thin Japanese paper. And then I used watercolors and alcohol markers on the back of the print to bring these gestural colors into the print. I use brayers a lot, just really directly, sometimes right on the paper itself, but a lot of times on the plate. So you can see those swipes of color. That's all just done with a brayer, a roller that has ink on it. Just whoosh. This is kind of a collaborative print. So there was a fellow, Lydia Hicks, and I taught her how to do a gum transfer print, and she was trying to make this color. She really wanted this certain color, And so by the time she had the right color, she had a ginormous pile of ink. And I thought, well, you know, she used as much as she wanted, and then there was still a ginormous pile. So I just started using her ink. So it's that beautiful blue color. So all this ink is underneath the colors, and then the black is on top. And then there's some silk screen and some drawing. And I'll stop right there.
Vicky, do you have the clicker? Yeah, I agree. Hi, thank you all so much for being here, and thank you so much to FOC, to my class, to Vicky, David, Sharon, Dustin, Chandra, Naya, Hannah, Miracle, Susan, Dawn, Sarah, Terry, Jerome, Nat, Joe, and everyone else who makes FOC so special. I'm really excited to be teaching here for the first time. And it's extra special to share tonight's program with Eileen and Vicky, who both are important to me in my practice. Eileen is a poet and cultural icon, whose writing I've admired for a really long time. And Vicky, whose work and ethos I love, and who's a dear friend and a musical collaborator, and the artist who made me feel comfortable and free in the print shop, and really opened the door to that medium of printmaking that's increasingly important for me in my process and thinking. This video is a test of one of my Marble Man characters from a project that I've been calling Hard Material, which is an ongoing multimedia puppetry opera starring a character with many faces that I call, Marble Man, as I said earlier, who's portrayed by a cast of marble puppets that kind of come out from different marble buildings and facades, speaking and singing about the dizzying array of ideologies that marble is made to promote in the built environment. I'm glad to talk more about that later, but since we're in Provincetown, I'll mostly show some work that I've made here in the last few years. Okay. Oh, that's Marble Man. That's Marble Man again. That's Marble Man again. Okay. So for a bit of context, I make a lot of different kinds of projects between and across moving image installation, performance, sculpture, animation and puppetry, architectural intervention, printmaking, and my projects prod varied histories of landscape and urban development with speculative fiction. I often work with video as a performance medium, and I'm very interested in blurring live and pre-recorded performance and moving fluidly between using the lens as my lens as a means of documenting versus a means of performing. And I'm into coaxing movement out of materials that are usually made to sit still in their architectural and sculptural applications. And I think about that and animacy as this queer subversive potential. Oh, yes, I was gonna show you this video of a Marble Man, another Marble Man character in DC. We went to DC. But we have to move on. So I'm going to show Mirrorball, which is a plein air stop motion animation I filmed while I was the 2022 PACE Fellow here at FOC. And the piece began with this desire to dance with and respond to the many ghosts that of the artists and writers and people who have wandered the dunes. And several of the characters are direct homages, such as the lighting gel puppets you'll see, which reference Barbara Hammer's experiments. with lighting gels during her 1998 Seascape Dune Shack residency. This that I'm about to show is a 2024 edit. It's a bit under 8 minutes long. I don't think I'll show all of it, but I'll start playing it. And if we could shut the lights off, that would be awesome. Thank you. Talk a little bit with it. The deep droning sound at the start was me playing theremin, an electromagnetic instrument that you play in the air to imitate the sound of singing sand, which is a phenomenon in the desert, especially dunes make a deep droning sound. Some of the sound in this comes from jam sessions I recorded with Vicky and Dawn with our band called Bad Whale. There also Katie Austra-Stelmanis, the lead singer of the band Austra, does voices later on in the video. That's okay. Oh, well, okay, cool. No, that's fine, yeah. Was it hard to hear me? Sorry, we didn't go through the, oh yeah, okay, cool. Then you can totally turn it off. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead anyway, just in the interest of time. Yeah, I've installed it lots of different places. I've also made prints. This is a gum Arabic transfer print and stencil monotype. And same. I started making sand monotypes, putting sand on the plate. I was thinking about, Mark Adams shared this thing on one of his amazing tours. I very much recommend that tomorrow, about how Provincetown is built on aquatic sand that's always moving. And I was really struck by that idea and just started to think about sand as this kind of sensuous material that holds so many different kinds of traces and many, many life forms, and was interested in playing with it in the print shop. This is another sand monotype. Not a sand monotype. Also, this is a sand monotype. Whoa. Oh, oh, oh. We also got to do a performance in the dunes while I was here in 2022 called Mirror Ball, a Rehearsal in the Dunes, where we projected early snippets of that animation back onto the dunes, and I talked about this fantasy I've had of filming a Western, and then set up this fantasy scene, and later on in the performance, real horses came through and realized one element of that fantasy. And then I also made prints with some of that documentation, and the original documentation was done by Michael Sestaro, and I love the images that he took. This is another print over a gum Arabic transfer print over a sand monotype. Then I installed Mirror Ball with a beach floor at Essex Flowers Gallery on the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And so here it is with a miniature beach, and there's a sand monotype on the wall in spotlight. There it is. It's called Xerox because it was the last print I pulled, and by that point I had done so many layers of sand inked up that it started to look like a Xerox of sand. Okay, and then so the thing about Essex Flowers Gallery is that there's a front space like this, and then through that black velvet curtain there's a back space. So in the show I wanted to play with that. And in the back space I showed this piece called Beach Effect that is sort of like a peep show installed in a toy theater embedded in a sand mound. And several people asked me to screen it this evening, so I'm going to show a little snippet of it. It is a peep show. Its title comes from a term Roland Barthes used in 1977 to describe a beachside sensibility. And I'll play a little snippet. The sound is all by Katie Austra Stelmanis. Oh, we should put the sound up. Oh yeah, thank you so much, Hannah. Over it a little bit. Can you hear me, or should we lower the volume? Okay, cool, thanks. So yeah, I was thinking about histories of cruising in Provincetown and the kind of siren call of this sandy landscape, and also various references like Warhol's blowjob and his kissing video, for instance. And that's all I'll say about this one. I also showed it in that back room, showed it next to this sand monotype that I made that I installed on a light box. I realized after printing these that a number of them had holes through them because the pressure of the press with the sand had made holes, and so by installing it on a light box, it kind of shifted into this sort of like starry constellation zone. And then now, this is my most recent installation called Stall. And I made it just this May when I was back here for a returning residency. I stumbled upon about 100 horseshoe crabs spawning near the West End Marsh because I'm preparing to do a new project over there at the end of August and beginning of September. And I'll read you a little snippet from the press release from this show, which is up at Turley Gallery in Hudson, New York. A horseshoe crab watches the spawning of its species in a narrow horse stall. This is a show as old as the dinosaurs. The horseshoe crab, often referred to as a living fossil, is among the oldest species on Earth. By stalling, the horseshoe crab survived. Some people seem to think that survival is very important. So still is a synonym for stall. Some stalls contain urinals, others hay. Some stalls sell vegetables, others jewels. Some people use stall tactics, others stall inadvertently. A stall is a place where a horse goes when it's off duty. Stall vices might develop out of boredom, out of necessity. Stall, to play for time, delay. This was also a response to the gallery space itself. It was installed in this in-between zone between the front gallery and the back gallery. So I was thinking a lot about in-betweenness and stalling in the context of this moment and what that might mean. Special thanks to Jerome and Jay Critchley, who helped a lot with this in various ways. Jay let that horseshoe crab hang out in his backyard for a while. So yeah, I'll be back at the end of August and the first week of September to embark on this new project. So if you see me filming stop motions around the marsh, feel free to say hi. Finally, I wanted to echo those who have thanked FOC and this community. I really loved the way that Ruby put it the other day, like microdosing, utopia, and the way that Tracy spoke about resistance, and I identify with the way both of you spoke, and I'm so grateful for the many ways that the Fine Arts Work Center has continued to do the work. And, well, one more thing, sorry. For this show, I made these sand monotypes with cutouts for Polaroids of the horseshoe crabs. Anyway, just following on what I was saying before, in case you're able to donate, I just wanted to end with some places to donate. Number one, the link to Batul Abu Aklin on Eileen's Insta, and then also these. So thank you all so much.
Amazing. Can we have some more applause, please, for Sara Stern and Vicky Tomayko? Thank you so much, and thanks, Anna, for that introduction. If we can get all our presenters to come back up to the stage, let's do a little Q&A. What the heck?
Hello.
Thank you. Yeah, I loved your video so much. You can just wait for Hunter or Cole to get to you with a mic before you ask your question. For people who are watching at home. I have a question. Can I start with a question?
Yeah.
Thanks. Eileen, I have a question for you.
Okay.
That long poem sounds like the only way it could have been written is in one headlong rush. Is that true? Like, how did you do that? Because the momentum and the energy of the poem is so kind of like relentless.
Well, you know what's weird is I keep these little notebooks, and what I'm starting to find, and I started to think, what's going on? Like, I'm not writing discrete poems. I just keep writing lines. And then what I've started to realize is that often the whole notebook is a poem. You know, and so there was surges in there. I mean, because I went. That's part of why I talked about all these different locations, because I was just trotting around in my life, even in different cities and things like that. And you know, the Zoe part I wrote right in front of the work. I just did bam, 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 bam. I just walked through the show and wrote as fast as hell. And then some editing later, like mostly removals. I never add things. I just take things out. Thanks for asking.
This wet frottage.
What's that?
This wet frottage.
This what you like? Good. That's for you. You can have that.
Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
My question is for Vicky. It's a very naive question, but you did bring it up about the process of everything we saw. They were all monoprints.
Yeah, all one-of-a-kind prints.
Yeah, even the woodcut one. Or you
yes.
maybe use the wood again in a different way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And why don't we call monoprints paintings? Because it just seems like extra tools and extra process to make a single painting.
I don't really know the answer to that. Michael Mazer, who established the print shop here, used to say that monoprinting is really basically painting, but it's for printers who, when they go to the ocean, they don't like put their foot in and see what the temperature is and then kind of eke up to their waist. They just jump in. So I don't know. I've always thought about it that way. It's it's fierce, or it can be.
And what is waterless lithography?
So in lithography, real lithography, stone lithography, and the old-fashioned plate lithography, you have to keep the plate wet with a sponge and water when you're rolling the image up with oil-based ink. And if you don't, the ink fills in everywhere. But someone developed this new technique where instead of using water, you coat your plate with silicone, just the kind you get from the hardware store. And you buff it on, and this is the trick, the thing that I keep failing at. You buff it on really super thin so that when you wash out the drawing that's underneath, only that part will take the ink, and the silicone will repel the oil-based ink.
I have a quick question. I mean, I like so much of what I saw, but the wood print poppies was incredible. That wood print must be really different working in wood, though.
Yeah, I mean, I love that it's like a winter activity. Like I like to, well, if I had a wood stove or a fireplace, I would like to sit there and do that. But it's meditative. And oftentimes I don't plan the whole thing out in advance, but I kind of have an idea of where it's going to go. And just carving is, it feels good.
Do you draw first and then carve?
I do some drawing, and then I make changes, and
Hi. I really enjoyed all of your presentations. This is a question for Vicky and Sara. As the other faculty team co-teaching this week, given how different your work is, I'm really curious to hear about your collaboration and how you enhance each other's work and how you've put a course together that somehow spans such incredibly varied approaches. Thank you.
Well, Vicky and I have collaborated. I didn't have a chance to show any of that today, but for instance, when we play music together with Dawn. Hi, Dawn. When I was here as a PACE fellow, we did an improvised score to an early edit of the Mirrorball stop motion animations. And so I feel like we have this way in which we do improvise and perform together outside of the print shop. And do you want to say more?
Well, I just remember when the first piece work of Sara's that I saw was an animation of a pot-bellied iron cast stove. And, it was walking around doing things, telling a story. And I thought, that's someone I would like to get to know. And I hope she comes in the print shop because that would be fun.
Yeah, and Vicky taught me to do gum Arabic transfer prints, which I made of that video, which was called Company, and it was filmed in a former stove oven heater factory in Richmond, Virginia. And it was like the old memories of the property were coming to life via these vintage stoves. But yeah, I think that we connect on a number of levels, not only through making music together, but also through making prints at the same time in the shop and doing that kind of dance already. Like, part of what we've been talking about in class is how there's already a dance of communication happening no matter what. Like, oh, you're over there, I'm over here. Am I taking up too much? Can you go over there? Like, are you gonna use the press? Am I gonna use the press? There are only so many presses. We're circling. There's like a thing happening already like that Vicky and I have experienced together, and anyone who's been in the shop with Vicky has experienced.
Well, I just feel like when I was in school, the reason I gravitated towards the print shop was that I wasn't alone in my studio. There were other people there, and you formed relationships. And I noticed even this week that the students are starting to connect and collide and become a team of sorts, you know. They're doing their individual work, but they're also really talking, not just about their work, but just about life, too. And I think the print shop advocates for that.
And I think one other thing is that I really love juxtaposing different elements, like let's say in a performance, and just seeing what happens. And that's part of, I think, our approach to the class is like, I am bringing more of a background in performance. Vicky is bringing so much experience in printmaking among so many other art forms. And then I think we're seeing how those things juxtapose.
I guess I kind of have a question going off of that conversation about collaboration. I think in all of your work, I sense a theme of absurdism, I guess, and I think that comes from like putting, well, I guess for Eileen and Sara specifically, like I think in both of your work you put sex in conversation with bigger, or not bigger, other big questions like the environment or like violence, and I guess I'm just wondering like what your process is for that kind of fluidity among themes, because I think in my work I find it hard to not feel like writing about sex is taking away from the gravity of another theme that I want to write about. So I guess if anyone has any thoughts on that, I'd be super interested to hear.
I just want to say that sex always quickens. No matter what location you're in, when I have an impulse to drop a sexual remark or a feeling or something, the very speed of the piece changes, you know, and that's like good for the energy of any long work, is to keep changing the pace and kind of like, because I think you want people to keep looking, to keep reading, to keep engaging. And I think sex, in the same way that like, why did I think about sex at that moment? You know, it's like my own desire to engage, you know. And so I think it's almost always a plus. I've never seen sex as a distraction. It just always seems more. It's a profit of a good kind.
Maybe that's why it was kind of hard to edit that piece, Beach Effect, because it was like all the quickness. It was just all these quick shots. Yeah, I think it is. I think I'm interested in bringing it in as an element in relation to all these other things, like a vibe change or like this different rhythm. I love humor. We didn't get to the point of Mirrorball where we go to this interlude, which is like circus music and the gel characters dancing. But I love like when something just has a quick switch. That happens so much in your writing in such wonderful ways. And yeah, I think that's sort of how I'm interested in it.
When I first saw those sand heads, I was like, oh, please, God, let them move. You know, was that like mini small photographs? Is that you do a stop animation thing?
Yeah.
Oh.
But then the Beach Effect, the
Is that
show,
the Bart? Is that the Roland Bart? What you did? Yeah. Was
Yeah.
that his lane? Yeah.
That's live action puppetry. There are only a few stop motion scenes in that one.
Huh. And it's weird because it's contemporary yet ancient. I mean, because those heads have an Olmec pre-Columbian look too. Like they
Totally.
could have been there forever in some still way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of the awesomeness. It's like they should move, and then when they do, it's kind of you want them to go for it.
Yeah.
So, those sand people, is there somebody inside all that sand? I mean, how's that done?
I love this question.
I mean, the
Would
the
that like to
black
be you?
folks with the mirrors, you can see they're actually people sometimes, which is surprising.
Yes.
But how about the sand guys?
So these are all puppets, and I really love to play with scale to make them look a lot larger than they are. So it's all about setting up the camera to try to play that trick. But they're quite small.
How small?
The sand heads are this big. I should have told you they were enormous. And then the disco head characters, for instance, are this big, yeah. But I have been interested in staging a performance with dancers wearing life-size costumes of that. I haven't yet had the opportunity to do it, but I would love to.
I have a question.
And I'll call you up, Mary.
I have a question for Eileen. In class, we were talking about how good poets borrow and great poets steal, and you mentioned that you stole the skinny lines. I'm curious if you could talk about like who or where you stole them from, and also maybe talk about what attracts you to that style and what you think it does for your work.
I stole it from the poet James Schuyler, who's like just somebody whose work was really important to me and who I read long before I ever met, and then I did meet him and we became friends and I worked for him and so on. But it's sort of, but it was so interesting because I was just drawn to it because it just made so much space on the page, and it made you go quick, and I guess that still is it. I think it denotes speed in a certain way, and I think a thin line makes people turn pages, but also pay attention in a certain way because you could lose meaning very quickly in a thin thing. And but he, interestingly, and both of us have histories. I've been an art writer in various ways at various times, and so he too always carried slim notebooks. So the basic thing, which is so funny about any medium, is like, why do you write those skinny lines? Because this is a skinny page. You can only fit 2 or 3 word lines. And because the other scale, I love legal pads. Like I find a legal pad really hot, and suddenly, and same with him, and so and suddenly the line becomes really wide. So it really just is a kind of taking what's there and using it, and this Swiftie is practical. Thank you for asking that.
Also, I had a question for Eileen about, I think it was the introduction of ballroom that led me to think maybe, I thought ballroom was the one written as you were driving, and maybe it was. Okay, but I had this image that maybe there were that you were like picking up conversations from a road trip from New York to West Texas, just like my own filter, looking at this work. And I'm curious if
The long poem, you mean?
Yeah,
The long poem, you mean?
Yeah, no, and I'm just curious, like if do you hear? Is that part of your process at all? Like hearing people's conversations in movement. Whether it's like I was envisioning some of these conversations like at different truck stops or something, and like I don't know, open-ended.
No, I mean I just think I think most writers are talking to themselves all the time. So part of the I is a conversational thing. So it sounds like you're talking to somebody because you're always walking away from some conversation and saying the thing you didn't say and so on. So I feel like I know that the structure of my mind is very conversational, so I'm kind of like chattering away to myself, But I think it was all, that long poem was all, in fact, I did write it entirely in Marfa, and it was totally on foot, Walking, often with my dog, often very much in conversation with my dog, and a lot of back and forth and thinking about the remarkable things she's putting her head into and, measuring the land before I measure it and so on, and I do think a lot, I was talking about musicians who, because I do not play any musical instrument, I'm fascinated by musicians. Like I think what I'm really fascinated with is embouchure, the thing that is about the musician's mouth on an instrument, because they all do, whether they're using their mouths or not playing instruments, they're all doing like weird stuff, you know, and I'm so interested in that, you know, like watching them move, and when they, you know, so I think I was playing with what they were doing. But, and this is a complete aside, but I just want to say it too. I just saw an amazing film called Afternoon of Solitude, and it's about bullfighting. And when I was in Spain in the last year or so, these Spanish artists who all hate bullfighting said there's an amazing film about a documentary, and it's about a young bullfighter. And this guy, when he gets up to the bull, he becomes a musician. He starts going to the bull like that and making faces at it and then shimmying. And the whole performance of a bullfighter with the bull is totally erotic conversation. You know, so I just think art is so conversational, and that's so I am talking, but like you hear, but it's often with things and myself and the world.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi. Thank you all so much for being here and for sharing. We have talked a lot about ghosts this week. I know. Tracy was so nice to share about ghosts. And you, Vicky, mentioned on one of your prints you had like a shadow on top that you called the ghost printed on top, which I thought was fascinating. And Sara, you talked about the ghosts in the dunes, and Eileen, you did not mention ghosts specifically. But
I had a great ghost joke today, so I'm in there.
But I do find that in your work you bring things back over and over again and loop in a way that is oftentimes, I think, like haunting. So I was wondering if the three of you would be willing to talk about the way that ghosts or haunting enter your work.
Okay. Oh, so many ways. I mean, I also think, like, when I'm doing an installation, I think of appropriation or homage, sort of like a haunting. Like when I did the sand beach installation in the gallery on the Lower East Side, I was thinking about the artist Lutz Bacher, whose wonderful sand installations I really admire, and felt kind of like haunted by her, but also used the exact same sand, so it's purposeful. Or like Paul Tech also made sands installations, and I was thinking about him, and had spent time at the Watermill Center in a residency just before I did that install, and that place was very haunted. Anyway, sorry, he hasn't installed. They have until recently had most of his estate there. So I think I'm thinking about it that way, and then also like this idea of channeling people who you know have walked these same paths. Like Jay Critchley runs the Seascape Dune Shack and let me go there for a day and film around where I knew Barbara Hammer had spent time, and just working with the same materials that she had worked with. Like I was trying to channel her, and actually it really felt like I did. Like there were all these moves that happened improvisationally in the stop motion that felt like she was present, and I'm really interested in that. I didn't get to meet her while she was alive, and so it felt like this way of communing.
Well, when you're making monoprints and you pull a print, most of the ink goes on to the paper, but there's always some residual ink left on the plate. And then that's very interesting because I try not to clean up too much, so I leave all that on there and just keep going. So that's like the ghost of the previous image, and then it builds and it creates a kind of space. But I've actually only had one encounter with a ghost, and this was when I don't even know if I should talk about this, but
Oh, please.
I was young, and I was hired to clean this old house, and I was in there cleaning, and I was upstairs with the vacuum cleaner, and I was having this conversation with someone who was asking me, what did I do with her blue dress? And I thought it was the woman who had hired me to clean the house. And then I turned around and there was no one there, and I thought, that's weird. I thought, maybe I'm gonna go downstairs and see if she's downstairs, and I just missed it. So I went downstairs and the phone started ringing. And I looked, and it wasn't, this is back in the old days when the phones were on the wall and you had to plug them in. And it wasn't plugged in, it was just ringing. So I thought, okay, I'm out of here.
Wow.
I mean, I just think that reading and writing are haunted. You know what I mean? I just, the act of reading books is reading other people, eating other people's ghosts, you know, and everything I ever leave is like a track that has become a pastness. And then, and I, you know, and I think I read very deliberately to ingest people's energy and styles and thoughts and dreams, you know. So I just think it's just like the whole practice. And I think of, you know, it's like my father was very important, who died when I was quite young, wanted to be a writer. I'm haunted, even as a writer, by this man's desire and to become, you know, their child who writes. Though I want to say I have a friend, a Mexican writer, Carmen Belosa, whose work, if you don't know it, she's so great. She has one of my favorite books of hers is called Texas, the Great Theft. And she writes, it's a historical novel about the border in the 19th century, and there's an indigenous people there, Mexicans there, and Anglos there, and it's just like, and it's operatic, and everybody has a song, and it's amazing. But she's also got a beautiful book called Before, and it's a very thin novel about a young woman haunted by her dead mother during puberty. And it's so incredible. And the more I've gotten to know Carmen, her mother did die during puberty, you know, or before. And so when she went through it, she had this whole kind of haunted feeling with her mother. And I think, you know, again, I think things like puberty are a kind of a haunting the body, and you know, menopause is a kind of haunting, you know. And I think those echoes go, you know, the echoes of our body and changes go in directly into my work and our work, and we consume it to know more and to be haunted by other people's experiences. So that's a great question.
Lots of great questions. Can we have another round of applause for Sara Stern, Eileen Myles, and Vicky Tomayko? Great night. Thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. Remember, tomorrow night's student night. There's books for sale at the back of the room. Eileen will be signing tables back over there. Check out the exhibition. It's really beautiful if you haven't done so already. And thank you for